to the housing crisis or the housing problem has been politicized. So probability of Kenya Kwanza guys supporting the housing plan is almost 100%. And the converse obtains for Azimio. But as we had started off, let's go back to the building blocks. Does Kenya have a housing insecurity crisis? Yes, we do. If you look at the pillars of housing insecurity, number one, affordability, availability, the quality, sanitation around it. So it therefore means that there's somebody who needs to trigger a movement or that conversation so that you can start addressing the insecurity bit. Then secondly, if you look at the housing fund or levy or tax alone, there's a very high probability, as I indicated earlier on, that you're going to miss the picture. But after you get these resources, how are they going to be deployed? The multiplier effect of the entire chain. So there are figures which have been thrown all over, that it could be 200,000 houses, it could be 500,000 houses. But when you look at that sector, say you're going to put up 500,000 houses per annum, the construction sector, the industry that are going to be spurred, there's a very high chance that Kenya is going to be an FDI destination for new building technologies, for people who see that there's a ready market in Kenya and they want to use Kenya to capture the entire region. And you know, now you can go through the merits or demerits of the actual physical infrastructure. But again, let's go back to the Kenyan Constitution. Article 43 provides for so many other things. Inter alia is about housing, that you need to have access to quality housing, affordable housing, sanitation. So in the process of coming up with this fund or levy or tax, whatever it is, there's a very high chance that as the government working with the private sector to put up these units, there's going to be increased supply of serviced land. And serviced land here means that there's land which has already got the basics, the water, sanitation, utilities, and everything else. So that other people are not interested in this thing, we will actually have an opportunity to invest in houses of their own choice. And if you go through all over the world, all experts are agreed on several things. That in theory, you're supposed to let the private sector come up with the houses. But in practice, for the low income and moderate low income outlets, the private sector is not very excited, simply because the returns are not very good. And if you have to stick with the procedures, then you can easily compromise the quality. Now, the research I was basing on, that research has been done here in Nairobi, the majority of the people, at the end of the month, they suffer from housing instability. They are worried about how they're going to pay their rent, or they're worried about how they're going to pay their mortgages. In fact, in my village, when you come to Nairobi, the first thing you're expected to do is to buy a piece of land and put up a house. And the moment you do that, then you invite the entire village to come and
I need to ask you a question if that is their biggest need. But before we come to that, Prof, welcome to the show. The president has outlined his plan, and he has sought to explain it, saying that there will be an economic, domino effect, if you may, with jobs. He says there will be created employment with during the construction of those houses, and people will do business, supply of cement and steel and sand and all that. What is the impact, economic impact of such a housing plan for this country?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think it makes economic sense, because the market, there's what are called the market forces. If that was the case, there could be no market failure. The issue, the challenge of housing, there's a market failure, meaning that the supply-demand forces doesn't make people to own more houses, because currently 10% of Kenyans own houses, 90% are renting in urban areas. In rural areas outside Nairobi, the figures are very different, because people tend to own more houses. Like in our villages, we own 100% of the houses. We don't rent them. So because market has failed to address this need, it needs to be a public good. So what is not a public good, when you want to treat it like a market-driven thing, then it fails. You see, for example, why do you think that why do you think that no one is constructing their own private road? Because road is a public good. Why is no one constructing their own school? Because it's a public good. Why government should invest in public good and allow the private things to be done using market-driven forces? And in fact, that's why the problem is, because now, if you force me to own a house, and you force me to own a house, houses are always incurring costs. Even those who own houses, you have to service the house. Even you talk about that there are service plots, who will pay for your electricity? Who will pay for your security? Who will pay for your water? Who will pay for your sewer? In Kibera, they use flying toilet. I live there. We don't have to pay sewer. We don't have to pay garbage. When you go to an organized place, there will be much more organized ways to live. And the more organized things become, the more costly they are. Let's talk about a city like Kigali, which is a highly formal city that some people from Kigali cannot afford that city, because it is Kigali is 60% formal, 40% informal. Nairobi is doing something like 80% informal, 20% formal. If you go to a city like Kampala, it is 8% formal, 92% informal. If you look at that city, it's easy to survive because there's a way some people can find cheap ways to survive. But when you increase the cost, how many people are living in a house made of steel in this country? When they live in a house of steel, do you know how often those things break? How many doors are breaking? Even if you go to Karen, Lavington, do you want to maintain them? In Kibera, when we lived, why are you breaking a door? What was the need to repair a door? A door that cannot open, we simply don't, cannot open, we simply remove it and put aside and people continue living life.
Right.
Can you live such way? So I'm trying to say, until a housing become a public good, when you try to use market forces, doesn't happen. And that's why it should be left for its own device to use market forces. And secondly, just to highlight this thing, according to me, the most painful thing in this housing push by the president is very simple. That he only tells you, but there's no algorithm calculation to show us how will it contribute to GDP, how will it contribute to national revenue, how will it increase income for people.
All right.
We need to go to those numbers rather than just someone saying it will be great.
Fair enough.
Because we cannot go there by faith. I know that there's a lot of faith in the country, but faith has taken us to Shakahola and other things. So we just want to have numbers. In numbers, we will believe. So let him tell us what will be growth. If I look at the economic projection for growth, I don't see how housing has an impact, because they are projected using the budget, how the economy will grow. How comes we have not seen this growth that will come and boomerang? Because when Kibaki came with primary education, it was double-digit growth. This is not.
Right. All right.
So I don't see the real economic indicators. I'm just seeing faith, faith, faith. Believe in me, I'm the president.